Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next Wasteless World Talks with Bill and Mark and myself. We will write on the back of a language towards wasteless world. And the term today cannot be simpler. It's simply a tree. So I will start with you, Bill. When you heard a minute ago that we will talk about the tree, what came first to your mind, please?
First thing to my mind was a family tree. The common type might be the trunk being the great great grandparents, and then the branches and so on. Um, and so I'll just offer that. That was the first thing that came to mind, and then some other things came to mind. But go ahead, Mark.
Well, I find I love trees. I absolutely adore trees. I love looking at them. I love planting them. I love watching them grow. I'm also aware of many people that get scared of trees, particularly in forests. And if there's a wind blowing and the trees are blowing around. As I'm talking to you now, I am surrounded by trees. I'm looking at them and they are blowing and swaying. They look wonderful. But then, just for a different perspective, I'm also reminded of being with some of my Irish friends in a bar and one of them ordering drinks. And they will tend to order tree pints.
Haven't heard that one.
Yeah, rather than three. And the people that can't pronounce the number three will go for tree instead. Yes. So there are wonderful connotations with the word.
I have a noon discussion about the same topic, and one of my questions was, if you can be a part of a tree, which part you will be?
I would be the leaf, way at the end of the branch, blowing in the wind, changing colors, and then shuffling off this globe and allowing for somebody to take my place. And meanwhile, I'm on the forest floor, uh, nourishing the other plants. It just seems like it has so much purpose.
That's interesting. What about you, Mark?
Actually, I love the roots. And I'm fascinated by tree roots. And I'm fascinated, in terms of, you don't get a very good view of the world underground, but the amount of things that go on underground by tree roots, talking to the roots of other trees, of actually passing nutrients to each other. And the way that the tree, which looks majestic above the ground, is anchored by those roots. And how different the roots are by different types of trees. And probably the most amazing ones are the giant redwoods in California. And here you have the tallest, the biggest trees we know. And their root structure is unlike anything one might imagine, because the roots only extend about 2 to 3 meters underground, but they spread out horizontally and link with the other trees. And so you can have a tree that is so magnificent, so robust, so resilient, yet actually being held by a root structure that would appear incredibly fragile. And then you compare it with an oak, and the root structure for an oak is so different. And you'll see an oak standing alone in a field, and it can be there for hundreds of years. And it's just amazing to see what those roots support above ground?
You know, I came to the term because I visited one garden close to my parents' house, and I found there this little piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably sequoia, which is
Yeah.
not growing in my country at all, but the garden was, let's say, established by someone who probably imported. And I was so fascinating that I said, okay, we should speak about trees. And the noon discussion was very powerful, very powerful. It was fascinating how such a simple word wake up imagination and everything. Speaking about the roots, I asked Jane about what she would like to be. She said she would like to be the blossom, but only for me, which was fascinating.
So nobody
I
else can go in your forest.
Yes, and generally, a few years ago, when I have already over 100 or 50 ambassadors, it was I draw an image how I image the network, and I said all the time, please imagine myself as the old root which is connecting the tree to the ground. And I have it somewhere because I draw it on camera, somewhere on YouTube. It was very interesting, and but thinking about the great function of every single part of the tree, every single one. It has function during the life, before the life, after the life. It's a great example for society. Why don't we build a society like the tree is built? You know, we do it completely opposite way, and we wonder why it not works.
It is amazing when we look at the destructions of forest. We see the clearing of ground, believing that this ground is going to be used for better purposes, and yet the amount of value contained in those forests is amazing. The life supported, whether it's wildlife, the compost that results from leaves falling, and the fruits that fall. It is incredible. And what's also amazing is the way in which trees have their cycles every few years. And if you have a fruit tree yourself, you'll notice that every 5 or 7 years, you'll have the most amazing harvest on those trees. And then they go just going through their normal cycle. And it's incredible. I mean, I've got oaks here where suddenly acorns absolutely everywhere. And, you know, if you've got a garden, you actually do need to clear them away. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a little forest in your garden, which you might not want. We do plant trees, but we try to get different varieties in. And I agree with you. And it is amazing the timber that is provided, how it has been used, how it can be used, and how we try to replicate those materials in man-made materials and invariably fail. You go to
The
Japan. I mean, I was in Switzerland last week, and I apologize not being able to join the call. But when you are in those countries that have used timber in construction of homes for so many, for centuries, and how these great chalets, these great houses are built without any nails, without any screws, just joints and the timber actually providing all of the joists and structure. It's amazing. And the smell. Wonderful.
Traditionally, how you said the value of the forest, and traditionally, I think we have always valued it by how much money we can make if we chop it all down and sell it.
Mm.
And yet it's that's such a bastard approach to the word value, but we apply that to a lot of things, to people. That's not uncommon. I would like to start a movement where we value things not by how much we can sell it for, but by how much richness it brings to to my grandchildren, for example. We have a forest near here that we take them to. Um, Sometimes we just went there a couple of days ago, and it's a 1 mile circular path with a beautiful bridge in the middle, with all sorts of different trees and grasses and so on. It takes an hour or 2 hours to walk around that 1 mile with those three kids because they're all the time squatting down. I can't squat like that. I would never get up. They're looking at the they're looking at the leaves on the ground. They're looking at the bugs in the tree from a place where the bark came off and there's bugs and sawdust in there. They're looking at so many things. And please, dear God, don't ever let me look at forest through a grown-up's eyes. I want to look through the forest through the kids' eyes because it's just so amazing.
You
Mm.
know, when I was for the first time in UK, I went to countryside as well, and I was so surprised because there has been fences around woods, around forest, fences everywhere generally, and I am not used to that from Czech Republic. Every forest, almost every forest is free. You can enter, you can leave, whatever. I was so surprised. Then I have learned that you can enter it. There are some conditions about it and so on. I didn't know it at the time, but it was very interesting. Unfortunately, today, since generally it started before a COVID, there was a bug killing one type of tree. I don't know the name of the bug. It doesn't matter.
Mm.
And even the ministry says everybody can go to the forest and cut this type of tree, which is the most common here, and burn it or whatever. It runs until today, and not the small ones. They pick up few branches for the fireplace, but the big ones they take over, and they generally exploit the forest from the middle. So if you walk around, you don't see it, but then you see just the prepared wood, cut wood to be exported. And of course, the forests get weaker. If there is a wind, one tree cannot support the other. They break down and so on, and they work in night. So it's so horrible, and it's legal. And I do remember one science fiction story, which was about the aliens which came to the earth and pay for wood with gold. And of course, the earth citizens happy having so much gold until the last tree was gone. But they have a lot of gold.
And that's something you see on a number of islands where all the trees have been chopped down either for building homes or for firewood. And then when it's gone, it's gone. And the idea of how to maintain forestry skills in cutting down and regrowing is a science. It is something that has to be practiced. And it is very dispiriting. If you go to, I don't know, if you go to British Columbia and you see the great logging sites and these magnificent trees being pulled down, it is dispiriting to see quite how it's being done. And some of these logging operations, as Bill says, are focused on that profitability rather than long-term value. And we really do have to learn what our value system is.
Did you climb the
Yes.
trees as boys?
Oh yes.
Ah, yes, climbed the trees, fell out of the trees.
Built houses up in the trees. Yeah, all that. The when you're talking about how sad, Mark, that is when they're cutting down trees. Uh, I'll never, if I live to be 100 years old, forget the afternoon that the neighbor of our grandchildren was having a tree in his front yard removed,
Mhm.
which is a kind way of saying killed. And both boys, maybe they were 4 and 2, looked out the window and cried. And
Mm.
we say, It's just a tree." No, it's alive. You're hurting it. You're hurting it. And that went on until the tree was gone.
Mm.
But the such an empathy that by and large we do not share. Adults do not share that. We have the reason for it. We know what comes next. We understand. But what do we really understand? What do those grandkids really understand?
You know,
So, sorry, I was just going to say, Michael. So, just on that chopping down of trees, where I live, which is southwest of London, and we're surrounded by countryside and forests and land. Fortunately, most of the land is owned by the Ministry of Defence and it's used for military training, and the public are allowed to go anywhere on it. But what's interesting is that the county that I live in and the borough that I live in, we have an extraordinary number of trees here. We have it's very high numbers, and a very large number of the trees are have what are called TPOs, which are tree protection orders. So no one is allowed to chop them down. If you want to chop down a tree or prune it significantly, you have to go through a whole procedure to actually get permission to do these treats. Normally, if there's a safety issue, like a very large branch hanging across a road or another house, it's perfectly logical. But sometimes the amount of administration one needs to go through causes many people to say it's not worth even thinking about. Just leave it. And so we're able to enjoy these wonderful things. And as I'm talking to you, I'm looking at 3 trees in front of me. The number of birds that are flying into them, the squirrels that are running around them. And clearly at this time of year, we're just starting to see the buds coming out as spring is starting to approach. Mind you, over the last 3 weeks, I think we have had spring, summer, and possibly this is autumn now, because as I think I might have mentioned before, the UK doesn't have a climate, it just has lots of weather.
uh, I have seen recently, I don't know whether you have seen the videos. In China, they are growing trees in a shape of chairs and banks, but it's really growing. They bind the branches together, and you buy a chair which is growing because they do not cut the chair. They give it to you with the root structure, everything. It was very interesting. And firstly, I was thinking it's AI fake. It was not. I spoke with the grower, and I was fascinated by the imagination of these people, real
Yeah.
gardeners. And he said, yeah, great share, great price. It's very expensive, but we have to wait 10 years till we can sell the first smallest one, and
Yeah.
50 till we would like to sell the biggest one.
The problem is, if you use those chairs in your dining room, they cause an absolute mess with the carpet.
You have to eat it on the grass carpet.
Exactly. Yes, can you imagine everyone sitting there in their chairs saying, "We're just waiting for the table."
When we were
But it will
talking a
come.
minute, when we were talking a minute ago about the value of the forest, uh, Galena offers the observation that it is 10 degrees cooler in the shade.
Mm, yes, absolutely. You look at the impact in cities, those that have trees in them, and how
Right.
much more pleasant it is for people to live there than in open areas. You're absolutely right.
And there's
Uh,
a whole movement of planting not only farm produce that we would eat, but on the sides of walls of the high rises and
Yeah,
turning the cities green, not just with um, trees at the curbside by the roads, which, by the way, some cities are planting fruit trees so that inner city people get some fruit because there's what do they call it? Fresh produce deserts in some
yes,
of the larger cities where they simply cannot get an apple or or a peach.
no,
You know,
no.
I asked at the beginning the question which part of the tree you would like to be, and Charito, who is from she's from Philippines, says I would like to be the fruit, which everybody is enjoying. The interesting part, Bill, nobody says the leaf, and so your answer was unique at the time. They said the roots was very close, uh, and just today in the morning, I think I saw how a short video how from the fallen leaves is made the they call it bio briquettes for heating. So this small compost whatever, and they make it from leaves. The video was from China, and a few years ago, I think somebody in Ukraine, it was before the war, started to make paper from leaves. Normally workable, so it works. The only issue which I have with this turning something what we call waste, it's not waste, but into a product is that when it starts, then in China there will be no leaves, there will be no soil, there will be,
Right,
and so on,
right,
because they don't know when it's enough. When you
right.
can make business out of it, let's cut everything, let's turn it into money, and let's die because there will be no trees.
As you were
Just
saying that, I was thinking, is that a good thing to make bricks out of leaves? Is that a good thing? Uh, do we know when to stop? Um, there's a whole list of ethical questions before we turn them loose on our forest.
Mark.
yeah, just another aspect though. When we look at destroying trees, we it's very easy to think of them as vulnerable. And clearly we have saws and we know how to cut them down and we know how to do various things with them. But I'm fascinated by the number of people that are scared of trees, and particularly forests, because I remember talking to someone not so long ago, and it was a windy day, and I was talking about I'd been for a walk in the woods with my dog, and he said, "Oh no, you wouldn't get me in a forest. Why? I know trees scare me. Whenever it's windy, they scare me." And when I tried to get to the reasoning of this, it was rather than these things being vulnerable items, he viewed them as astonishingly powerful objects that were living, and therefore they had a life of their own. And he was overwhelmed by that power, that strength, and that movement. So even the tree's not walking around, just swaying in the wind, the branches, the leaves coming down, or whatever. It's amazing how powerful they are. And we can look at them as a valuable aspect of nature that we should protect. But we also need to recognize these are astonishing things. The sequoias, looking, you go and see these trees, go and see those giant redwoods, those coastal sequoias. They are astonishing. I mean, just amazing things. And then as you go around, you see other trees and you see the height that they've grown and how quickly they grow. And it's easy for us to forget how quickly a tree does grow. Because if you plant one, you'll be conscious that we've just put a tree in. I mean, we planted a new tree last year. And actually, in 3 years' time, where you're still thinking of this new tree, suddenly you've actually got something which has a level of maturity, but it's growing in such a way that you don't notice it. It's a bit like seeing a grandchild or a young child and then not seeing them for 2 years. And you suddenly see them and go, my God, you've grown. And it's amazing. If you're with those children, you don't notice the growth. It's only if you go away and come back that you appreciate just how powerful these things are. They're wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
I think yes, Bill, sorry.
Being afraid of a tree, I can certainly relate to that. When I was growing up, I would have to come home from the store, and there was a house on the corner that had this huge tree in the backyard. And at night, in the wintertime at night, I'm walking on the sidewalk and I'm looking at this tree, especially if it's moving in the wind, and it seems to have a life of its own. It probably has emotions such as does it hate me? Does it resent me? Am I in danger? And now being grown up, a good friend of ours, we went to Boston a couple of months ago and we're walking in the woods, and she didn't want to go down a certain path because she had been there a few months earlier or something, and a tree had blown over and it didn't, not on her, but close enough for her to jump with the noise. And so she harbors a little fear about being knocked on the head with a tree coming
Mm,
over. So I think if you don't go back and maintain the relationship with your forest after something like that, that fear will grow, I think.
mm, mm,
But
Have you?
I would accept the fact that a tree is alive. Certainly that it thinks thoughts. We know that it communicates now. And how far does that go? Does it have emotions? Is it feeling an emotion when I walk by?
mm.
You know, have you ever been to a forest in a really cold winter, so minus 20, 30? Some
Mhm.
of the trees, like it's like shooting. The noise is very strong and they break from inside out. It's like opening the tree. It's really like shooting around. It's a noisy thing. But you know, Bill, you have several books. All of us, we like books, and books are made from trees. Do you think that still? I think that in the old books, you can feel the forest. In the new ones, I'm not sure. For sure, not in the e-books. You feel just the electricity if the connection is wrong. And I had a notebook, the very first one, and you have the hands on the hands rest, and the color went out And every single time when I touch it, I get an electric shock in my forearm, reminding me that it's not me who is the boss at that moment, is the notebook. But do you think that in the paper still the trees are there?
I think we do not understand. We do not know what we will know 100 years from now, or even, less, uh, having to do with the relationship between objects that are alive, are not alive. Um, my coffee cup brings me joy. Does it know that? I think that there is a lot there that we don't appreciate. Um, I know we don't respect it. Um, like hopefully we will in the not too distant future, or that's a direction that we will evolve.
Any comment on that?
Yeah, it's funny. On the one hand, as I'm speaking to you now, I am literally surrounded by books. Okay, I read 3 novels last week, and yet, whether it's because of the quality of the paper that's used in most modern books, I don't associate that with trees. When I get good note paper or a good notebook, then sometimes yes, I will do. But as funny as you were talking there, I was just thinking I do most of my reading. Most of my reading is now done on a Kindle. It's ebook, and it's just convenient. And I always go back to Marshall McLuhan's comment that the pictures are better on the radio. And I find it incredible how, when you're reading a book, not only does your imagination give you whatever you want, but also it's astonishing, and Kevin actually pointed this out to me a long time ago, that smell. It's amazing how when you're reading, you can smell something. I was reading these novels which were set in Maine and near the coast, and literally I was reading some sections. I could smell the sea air as I'm reading this book. The descriptions were so good that I think it transcends the physical nature of whatever you're reading or listening to something on. And it's the imagination and what is triggered by that.
I just,
And
yes, Bill, sorry.
and is the imagination real? Is what you are imagining real? It's not made up. And what is the difference between real and not real? And I think we're in that gray area in this conversation right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I published today in the morning, I wrote a short blog entry, and I just thought about, my generation is called the X generation. But in my country, we call it the Husak's children. Husak was the president at the time when I was born. So, and I was just thinking how the children in 2020 will be called the generation. And I just asked on Google, and it should be Alpha. I think it's 2010 to 2024, Beta from 2025 to 2030, whatever. And I was thinking, no, it's wrong. I think the children of today will be named Generation AI because their parents will be confronted with AI for sure. During the birth, probably AI will be there. After the birth, AI will deliver prescriptions, whatever, then the work and everything connected to AI. So I think that it will be AI, and I'm so sorry that we cannot say it will be the tree generation, or a generation of forest generation. I don't know, something more positive. AI for me is not positive in a way how it's used. I don't say it cannot be a good tool. It can, but unfortunately, more money is spent on a very opposite side than being a good tool. And we have 2.5 minutes left.
Okay, can I just say, I think that the risk of going down that approach is that it is a very short-term approach. Given that AI has been with us for so many decades through machine learning, through pattern recognition, all of this, we're dealing with an element of hype. We're dealing with agentic AI, and we are now starting to see with the Iran war, the tragedy of the war, the fallacy of AI in terms of it being supportive, affordable, and can the planet even cope with it? It delivers such nonsense, but it is a form of technology, that's all. And we have grown used to working with technology. So no, I would hope it isn't Gen AI. I think instead we could be looking at a shift where people have realized that the left-right political spectrum is about to die, and we are moving to a new environment in which people are looking at different values, different lifestyles, different ways of coexisting with each other and with the planet. And it's neither left nor right. There's no political party necessarily. It's us being humans recognizing our place in an ecosystem. I stop there, I promise.
That's a great image. Great image. It's
You know what that makes me think of, Mark, is the Dark Ages, and what followed the Dark Ages was the Renaissance,
Mm-hmm.
and I am hopeful that the tragedy that we have caused and brought ourselves through technology, through lack of ethics, through not caring for each other like we should, that this whole will be followed by a renaissance, a generation of people like my grandsons who feel empathy for a tree being cut down. If we can spread that through, Michael, through your networks and so on, through 1,000 other networks that are copying this or who are inspired by the same things that you're inspired by, that we can have a new renaissance. Maybe we even call it the same wasteless renaissance or something like that. I don't know.
sounds great, but unfortunately, the last minute. And I have to thank you for a great conversation. Have a nice time, free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, be free, be human, and be tree-like in all your life. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.